What's going on,
Yeah.
everybody? Josh, aka the Moses Muscle.
And your boy, cousin, Creamy. How you doing?
How you doing? How you doing? All right. On this episode of Next Up Podcast, we are getting into what did I even text you?
Training
Um,
philosophy on specific muscle
per
groups.
muscle groups. All right, cool, easy, fun. So top um mechanics of hypertrophy. Sorry, thoroughly distracted. One, mechanical tension, putting the muscle under tension. Two, metabolic stress, pretty much the buildup of lactic acid or pump that you feel, the burning sensation. And three, I always mess up. I said muscular damage. Sorry. So like the actual breaking down of muscle tissue. Preface that. Start there. Now we move down the human body. Do we start from the? Let's start from the floor up.
Yeah.
Start with calves. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Um, High rep, low rep. I think my idea when it comes to calf training is going to be first and foremost, you have to attack the entire calf. So anterior tibialis, soleus, and gastroc. So when the knee is bent, soleus, when the leg is straight, gastroc, the front of your shin, anterior tibialis, for those who don't understand. The gastroc is going to be comprised of mainly type 2 muscle fibers, whereas the soleus is going to be more type 1, slower twitch fibers. I believe the anterior tibialis is a pretty even mix of both, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. The tenets of the anterior tibialis, most people don't train it, so just training it in general with some sort of toe raises, some sort of anterior tibialis machine, something of the sort. Just doing that is going to allow for that muscle to get bigger and stronger. So, simple thing to say would be normal rep range of 8 to 15 reps is probably going to be your best bet. Not going to need a lot of drop sets, not going to need a lot of rest pauses, not going to need a lot of intensifiers, just simply because the muscle doesn't really get used. Um, I'll just go through the whole calf. You could agree or disagree.
Yep.
Soleus, we're going to be in a seated position. So, being that when we are utilizing our calves on a day to day basis, we are normally in a straightened leg using that. I do thoroughly believe that the soleus is going to respond better to high weight and higher intensity type technique. So something like a heavy rest pause set, something like a drop set is going to be where those really get knocked out. And as soon as the soleus stops taking on the brunt of the load, the gas jockey is going to come in to help. So you kind of get the best of both worlds by just fully trying to exhaust the calf. But I would suggest using higher weights in that because it's not used to carrying load. So, or it is carrying load, but not as a direct source in that aspect or propelling you forward in that aspect. For the gas shock, very heavy weight, very low rep. Reason being, it is our it is the muscle that is most responsible for propelling us forward in gait cycle in the calf, in the lower leg. So if it's constantly doing, if you walk 10,000 steps, you're doing 10,000 reps a day. If you're going to hit them with higher weight, lower rep, really, really hard reps. And this is where it comes in with the soleus is that you're getting a little bit longer of a rep range, even though it's heavy weight. That is going to allow for the gas shock to kind of come in where it's needed and get the higher reps. But also, if you're training it straight, I would honestly say anything from like a 5 to like a 10 rep range is your bread and butter for a standing calf leg or a standing calf raise type movements. And you can hammer some sets on them. They recover pretty quickly. So your opinion.
Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, if you don't want to get into the very science-based way, or not even science-based, but really scientific term and terminology, and all the time it comes to it's like people are like, you know what, my calves don't grow no matter what I do, no matter what I say, they just never grow. And it's like, calves are just kind of gonna cause it. They're very much like the shoulder in the sake of, your training frequency can be, almost every single day as long as it's recoverable. So, if your calves aren't beat to piss every single day that you go to train them, you're more than willing to train them. And that kind of goes to any muscle in your body. if you're recovered, you're not sore, you don't feel any sort of tenderness, tightness, any of that nature, you can train it. So going and training calves on, let's say, an upper day is not so far-fetched, and it's a lot more common than a lot of people think. And there's a lot of the times that people are training calves 5 times a week if they really wanted to, because their calves are dog shit and they can't grow. And again, it all comes down to muscle insertion. A lot of the times, people say they have small calves, but they don't train them. So it's like, if you're not going to train them, it's kind of like abs. People will diet down to nothing and have a very concave abdomen. There's nothing there to show, but you're 7, 8% body fat. But if you don't have your abdominals pushing up against your skin, it's going to take a shitload of dieting and very, very lean body fat to have them protrude through. So just like any muscle, you have to train them. And especially when it comes to as tiny as a muscle as most of they are for everyone, frequency can be up because the recoverability of them is very, very high. So again, whether flex, whether standing straight up, whether anterior tibialis, anything of that nature, if it's not sore, fucking train it. And if you want bigger calves, just like if you want bigger arms, you train it more frequently. You train it with higher intensity. You progressively overload. Same concept. It doesn't change just because it's your fucking calves. And some people are blessed, like Mr. Jack Eagles with fucking quads for calves. But some of us have to actually train our calves on the daily
So
if you really want it to grow.
I have this philosophy when it comes to calf training that the best way to go about it would be to you can do it with fasted cardio. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter when.
Yeah.
Um, but the idea would be to rotate and with one day off. So let's say you did seated calf on Monday, anterior tibialis on Tuesday. Wednesday you did standing calf, take a rest day, and repeat the cycle. Um, it really does kind of come down to frequency when you're really trying to grow something, but also just like we should have put this caveat in the beginning. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to react
Yeah.
different to different things.
100%.
Um, whether I personally I've done both low volume training and now very high volume training. And here's the funny thing: both work. So you just have to kind of know what works best for you, and that's why the purpose of this video is to say, hey, this is what we found to work best for these muscle groups, and like my opinion might not be the same as Colin's, and we both have better muscle groups than the other person to show for it. So
Yep.
is that a genetic thing? Maybe. Is that a hey, this works better for me and this is why I do it? Maybe. Is it this is the right thing to do? Maybe. This is not supposed to be super scientific. This is just supposed to be like what we found through, our clients, our own personal experience and things of that nature. So also we will probably mention what exercise we feel that muscle group working the best in and how it affects how we train. So for me, it's back. For Colin, I'm sure it's quads and hamstrings. Um, we can just start there. So now let's get to next muscle groups up. Hamstrings. Personally, what I found, because I do believe that my hamstrings have come up a fair amount this off season, has been higher reps, not so heavy on the weight, but really just focusing on exploding up um, and controlling that descent. They're not as clean of reps as I've done in the past, but I'm not looking for that either at this point. I'm trying to move a good amount of weight, but really just squeeze the ever loving crap out of my hamstrings every single rep. So go ahead, shoot off. I want to listen to this. I'm taking notes.
So, for me, a lot of the time, a lot of my hamstring training, it's been very simple. I don't do a lot of, you know, a lot of it comes down to just basic hinges, lying hamstring curls, seated hamstring curls. That's really it. I mean, again, when it comes to if you see any of my RDL videos that I put up there, I'm full hinge, full on bent. Like there's no stopping at the bottom of my knee. Like I have very good flexibility. So I go into a deficit deadlift and you bet your ass that those plates will be an inch, if not half an inch from the ground. And I will pull it all the way up, keeping my legs straight. Hamstrings are fully extended. And, that's what I found the best for me is that just overloading with high weight, higher reps, not crazy high reps, but I'm talking maybe between the 12 to 15 range. And again, if it's the RDL, we're doing like 365 for a set of 12 to 15.
Big body.
If we're doing, if I really just want to be an asshole and move weight, yeah, then I'll throw in 405, 425, and I'll do it for a set of eight. But again, for me, I have an amazing connection with my legs where I can overload the weight to unnecessary amounts, but still feel it throughout the movement. And that's what I found most important is that you have to feel everything. So hinging movements have always been something, it's been my bread and butter from day one. I always feel it throughout my glutes, throughout my hamstrings. But then when it comes to the lying down leg curls, that's another one. It's the squeeze and contraction is absolutely gross, but again, it's controlling the eccentric of the movement. You're not just throwing weight around. You can explode up, but really control on the way down and feel the weight just ripping your hamstrings apart. And then again, even for the last three, I only did that for the last, I mean, I've done that basically my entire lifting career. But then I've only really recently incorporated seated hamstring curls because I never had a machine in my gym. So I've only really done them for like 2.5 years. And that's just been kind of like the cherry on top. Again, it's another variation, but at the same time, you're really able to put a crazy emphasis on the stretch and the contraction is I feel is a lot different when it comes to seated than it is lying hamstring curl. But nonetheless, they both feel and work amazing for myself. And again, I feel like the best thing to do is just controlling the eccentric and overloading the lengthen portion of it and really being able to give yourself a higher rep range, but still be able to manage the weight where you're not dropping below that 8 reps per set.
Cool. So I have a lot of things to say off the back of this one, as always. Um, I am an abnormally strong hinger for having as poor hamstring development as I have. And I would even say as poor glute development as I have. I've been able to stiff leg deadlift 500 pounds for eight for probably the last 2 years without really effectively trying. There's a video on Instagram now of me deadlifting 625 after not deadlifting for over a year. And before that, the last time I deadlifted was over 2 years before that. Just kind of built to do it, which is why I didn't even add it in to my idea. So for me, hamstring development is not going to come from an RDL, but something I have been playing with, as opposed to stiff legs, as opposed to RDLs, is actually doing hyperextensions. And I
Yes.
feel that a lot more in my hamstring. So as Colin said, he can use a 365 and get a set of 12 and feel his hamstrings the whole time. I don't care how light I go. I don't care how heavy I go. I'm not going to feel it there. But I can use no weight and do a hyperextension and get 10 reps and say, wow, my hamstrings are fried. So finding the right thing that you feel that muscle group that you're targeting in is going to be the most important. So that's where I see it. In other terms of hamstrings, I just want to throw a little tip out there, a little Mosesism. Um, I personally will never program a seated leg curl and a stiff leg in the same session. The reason being, or RDL or a hinge movement in the same, is because they're the same thing, except if you think about an RDL or a hinge, when you get to this point, if you just took your heel and kicked it up, that's a hamstring curl. That's a seated hamstring curl because now you're here. So I never love to turn around. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands there. I never loved to turn around and program those specifically, but I understand if you are going to do that, do the seated leg curl first. The whole idea being, if you're doing the seated leg curl where you're coming down and you're actually flexing the hamstring, now you have a lot of blood in there. Now you get into a Dante Trudel style loading a stretch. So you will limit your load. You will not be able to use the same amount of load as long as you're going hard on the seated leg curl. But you might get the added benefit of the stretch mediated hypertrophy. So for those who don't know, it's loading a lengthened muscle group. So you could get that benefit. Is that 100% fact? Who knows? Don't care. I'm going to do what feels good and I'm going to do what grows muscle at the end of the day. At the end of a set, when you ask yourself, did that set grow muscle? And the answer is, eh, well, then get back in the set. You didn't finish. That simple. Those are the real keys of this whole thing. And crop that and make it into a TikTok of sort. Um, but you can go into the next thing from there. We're going to go into quads. I'm going to have a very different opinion on this than Colin does. I already know that. I have found quads to be one of the muscle groups that grow from burning, putting a lot of reps in the tank, turning around and really pushing the aerobic capacity and the just how much pain can you tolerate? Because I'll tell you this, a set of 6 or 8 on a hack squat is not the same as a set of 20 on a hack squat. That set of 20 is going to not only burn your quads, but it's going to burn your lungs.
Yeah.
So I believe, yes, you still want to use a heavier weight. Like at the end of the day, progressive overload is the king. We're going to try to make sure that there is more load on the bar every time we do it. But higher reps to me have been the things that show the most amount of quad growth. And realistically, I don't have great knees. I don't have great lower body joints when I get heavy. So something like a drop set to really just absolutely annihilate them, but fatigue them in a heavier rep or in a heavier set first is something that works very, very well for me. So I can fatigue my quads in a heavier weight using more total force. And then because when you don't have the best joints and they start to get swollen or start to feel a little iffy, trying to go high rep at a moderate weight is not going to be the best option. You can actually now just drop the weight and really just focus on really controlling each rep and making them hurt. Something I yelled at Colin when we were training together was don't worry about being strong. Don't worry about making them pretty, make them hurt. Make every single rep hurt. Because when you do that, there's no question it's going to force adaptation. So, Colin, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, it's for me from day one, everyone who's followed me from the beginning, I was always king squatter. I was putting that barbell on my back. I was just straight up barbell squatting for 400 or 500 pounds. I was kind of taking the very power building route and just trying to get as strong as fuck. That was kind of like what built the baseline. I was just trying to get as strong as I possibly could. So I was always throw a barbell, throw 450, 500 if I was really feeling spicy, and go down and do sets of six. And, without doing it, without, thinking of the, hypertrophic window and all that, I was always aiming to hit six, always aiming to hit eight. And that's kind of what I feel like built the big baseline for me because I would always go from that to hack squat like a moron. But, it is what it is. Hack squat, any sort of knee, any sort of flexion movement with any sort of load on your back, any axial loading was been my bread and butter. Smith squats, barbell squat, hack squat. Again, you can do some. I feel like you can grow off leg extensions, but again, not only leg extensions. They are a great cherry on top of a quad workout, but at the same time, it's not gonna build, these monster legs. My legs were not built from leg extensions. No, I it was me putting my heart and soul under ungodly amounts of weight and squatting down, and you're either dead or you're gonna get up. So that was a big thing for me. Again, I've always had relatively bigger legs, but at the same time, they have never had the detail nor the structure that they had without any sort of heavy press. So leg press, hack squat. But even when it comes to hack squat, you get to the point where, you go for 5, 6 plates and you don't hit that rep range. Oh, you're gonna fucking pay for it. So you're doing a drop set. Oh, it wasn't queued in for an intensifier this set. Well, you didn't hit your rep range, so you got to suffer. So that might be a double drop set of going down to 4 plates and then dropping to 3 plates, AMRAP it. And yeah, you're gonna see God in that set. But next time you're not gonna miss that rep range because you don't want to put yourself through that pain again.
I think we need to have a mentality podcast at some point soon. But this is the same tenets of dumb things with friends. It's like I'm shooting for something that does not make sense. It's four plates on the Humbler, the original Humbler, Paramount. Total leg is the technical term of it. And I got 3 reps, I think. I got buried in the set. I was dive bombing the thing. There was not a ton of control. But the idea was that if I touch this weight and I get down, I get back up. Keyword if. Next time I get under there, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable. I'm going to be able to control it. And that part of that set, the dumb things with friends set, if I've never described this and another, cut that out, put it on Instagram, put it on TikTok, the content brains. The ten, the idea of dumb things with friends is that the first time I touch the load, it is not going to build muscle, but the dumb part of the set will. So the drop part, the intensifier will build the muscle. The next time I touch that load or that weight will be the time that that weight actually is going to make a difference. So that's the whole idea behind it. That's the whole thought process of what dumb things with friends is. So as we finish up quads, we'll skip abs for now. We could talk erectors, but realistically, erectors are going to be pretty simple. Lift heavy loads bent over, whether that's for a lot of reps, whether that's
Yeah.
for a low amount of reps. It does not really matter. In order to build erectors, the weight needs to be heavy. If you can go heavyweight for a high amount of reps, it's probably not that heavy. Like if you can do 20 reps of something, you should gas out before you get to 20 if it's heavy enough. If you're turning around and you're doing 15 reps of something, maybe it's something you could really do for 10. Those last 5 reps are just disgusting, but that's probably a heavyweight. So, real easy. I say
Yeah.
now we get into, are we splitting the back up into upper back and lower back, or upper back and lats, or are we just going to say total back development? Because that's pretty easy either way. They're similar.
I
They are very similar.
honestly would say just total back from king shit back here.
Okay.
Just huh?
Yeah, I got it. I'll start out. Ready?
Go.
Let's make back training as simple as possible. Arm path, shoulder movement. If the shoulder goes forward and back, then we're going to be training more upper back. Think about it from the perspective of the traps. The muscle fibers run sideways. So if the in a three-dimensional view, they come forward and back to contract. So it's here they'd be fully stretched, here they'd be contracted. So if the shoulder moves forward and back, you're training your upper back. Another idea of this is the fact that your traps run all the way down into your erectors. So if they are squeezing forward and back, depending on how wide they are by your anatomical makeup, they're going to be the majority of your upper back. Simple. From there, you have like your teres, excuse me, rhomboids, things of that nature, upper lat. They all also contract from outside to inside. So from origin to insertion is going to be how they all move together. So just allowing the back to come here, allowing it to come back. I wish I had something better to describe. Let's say this is the body and we're looking at it this way, so sideways. The scapula has to come forward and then wrap back around. Now for lat training, really, really simple. The idea is either to get your elbow down into the pocket of your hip or come from across and then down into the pocket of your hip. You're not going to pull from here to here, realistically, for a lat, just because of how it also wraps around the spine. So keeping the elbow tight is going to allow for that to happen. And always just thinking pull down, not to you. Easy. How does the back grow? Upper back is going to be higher reps. Lats is going to be heavyweight. Lats are probably one of the biggest surface area muscle groups on your body. They need a lot of load. Upper back, I would consider upper back to be more detail oriented, but it's going to get taxed from things like your heavy hinges, your barbell rows, your heavy shrugs. If you do that, if you do farmer's walks, your upper back's going to grow. So like holding heavy weight is going to also help that upper back, but just from the perspective of what it looks like and how it feels to muscle or how the muscle feels, I've always found the upper back to work a lot better from higher rep ranges and like hanging in stretches, like allowing that bar to really pull you. Um, and you, this is where there is so much value. And I don't care who you are. If you watch Sam Sulek do a lat pull down and you mimic that, you will grow muscle tissue just simply because you're going hard. It's heavier weight that's pulling your back, and he's not going three full reps and then three partial reps. They're long sets. He's in there for a while. So unless he's not, because I don't really watch Sam Sulek, I've watched like one or two videos of him doing lat pull downs, and I was like, yeah, he's pretty on the money there. So
No, and yeah, it's like people always give Sam Sulek shit because, form's not this, form's not that. It's like, yeah, well, guess what? You don't look like fucking Sam Sulek, and that motherfucker's a freak. And I get it. There's a lot of people in the world who don't like Sam or just have this very conscious mindset towards Sam. But the thing is, like you said, he goes hard and he's in there. And there's some minute to a minute and a half sets where, he'll get 4, 5, 6, maybe full reps. And then, he's just doing partials till God knows when. And again, staying in there, but really exhausting every pathway of that movement. And even for myself, what I really had to do for myself, because again, my big thing from the judges, don't have the upper body to match my lower body, so it means I'm not training fucking hard enough. I need to go hard. I need to progressively overload myself every single week. So what have I done? I've instituted 2.5 back days realistically, and a mix of bent over rows, a mix of pull downs, single arm rows, single arm pull downs, chest supported rows. There's a whole lot of everything in there, but at the same time, I just go into these sessions with the intent of, you know, full contraction, full stretch, but I had to learn how to train back. So I had to really taper my weight down in order to know what the feeling is, because that was the one thing I lacked severely was the mind muscle connection. So just like many people, if it's hard to connect with your back because you can't physically see it unless you're double mirrored up and looking at it somehow at some weird angle, it's something where there might be times where you have to take one step back to take two steps forward and don't feel like it's against proper accordance to lower the weight and go through the full range of motion and really feel your back work. And if it means taking sets to 20 and building up that lactic acid burning in your lats, then do so. Because I can promise you, this is the most progression I've made in 2.5, 3 months than I have in the last 4 years of training.
we could put a caveat on this too. If you can't feel the muscle, you're going to get a lot more out of doing higher reps.
Yeah.
The reason being is that when you practice getting a muscle short multiple times, aka just squeezing the muscle multiple times over, then you're going to get a better idea of how that muscle feels. So I had heard a while back, uh, in order to feel the muscle, you got to grow the muscle. So yeah, sometimes you just need to throw reps at something. Just throw sets at it. You're not really worried about progressive overload in that aspect, but you're worried about just putting on. They say to get good at something, you got to do 10,000 hours. You're trying to put 10,000 reps into that muscle group for it to grow. And this actually leads us to the next thing perfectly. So for me and chest training, I have been a strong bencher for a very long time, and I've had a very poor chest for a long time. The reason that my chest sucked was that, for anybody who doesn't know this, big back, big bench. Always been able to connect really well with my back. It did not matter what I was doing. It did not matter how much weight I used. I could always feel it. I could not always feel my chest, so I could tuck my lats underneath, give myself a nice platform to bench from, and use my lats in the bench. Cool. Did not mean that I learned how to use my chest. So how did I learn how to use my chest? Was I'd walk around like this every day, flexing my chest and just sitting in that shortened range And I typically wear a lot of big hoodies. You would not be able to tell, and I'd be doing this for a very long period of time during the day, so that when I went into a chest fly, I could feel it again. When I went into a dumbbell press, I could feel it now. I could use my chest to move the weight. All of that to say, high reps in isolation, lower reps in the compound. When you're doing a compound exercise, you are not going to be able to fully isolate the chest. Your triceps are going to kick in. You're going to have some front delt kick in. When you're going at something with a sledgehammer, you don't want the lightest sledgehammer you can find. You want the heaviest one that you can control. Because if you have a 100-pound sledgehammer, you're not going to be very accurate. If you have a 3-pound sledgehammer, not going to do much. You got a 15-pound sledgehammer, and that's what you could do. That's what you got to do to get the job done. Not have to swing it 1,000 times, not have to swing it once and not know what you just hit. So choosing the appropriate weight in an appropriate rep range of most likely 6 to 12 on a compound lift is going to be your bread and butter. I say 6 because when you got to touch new loads, you got to touch new loads. But anything under 6, whether it's a flat bench, whether it's a flat dumbbell, whether it's an incline dumbbell, that's a weight that's going to get a little iffy on the stability of your joints if it's a freely moving thing. Now, if it's a machine and you want to go for a 3 piece, go ahead. But let's be real. What's the purpose there? What's the purpose of a 1 rep max machine press? What's the purpose of a 1 rep max leg press?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm sorry, you're not Ronnie Coleman doing 2,100 pounds in a leg press. It's not that impressive.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do a 1 rep max chest press, Julius Maddox bench is 800 pounds. You're not touching him. So who are you trying to impress here? Put some reps in, put some time in, get strong over a bigger rep range. Hit that.
Yeah, no, it's chess for me, it's again, it's been something I can always connect with, but I've never really had the greatest chest. Again, you want to call it genetics, you want to call it just poor growth, whatever the case you want to call it. For me, I've been able to connect with my chest, but it comes and goes, and it's kind of normal. I wouldn't say normal, but it happens where there are times where you just can't connect with the muscle. And this can happen with intermediate, advanced, however you want to label yourself in the lifting sphere. It happens. There's times where shit just don't click. It just does not feel good. Nothing feels right. And you just kind of got to put the work in for the day, hang it up and just call it a day and then try again next week. But, you know, you want to be able to, like you said, you want to be able to feel the muscle. But the thing is, you want to be able to put yourself under enough stress with enough load over a progressive amount of time and really at different angles. Because again, there can always be people who love flat press for whatever reason, they don't want to do incline press or even for the sake decline press. People think it's useless. You know, there's different machines for everything. There's different beliefs for everything, but I'm sorry. If you can attack the chest from all angles, you're gonna have growth from all areas. And everyone you know, loves to fucking talk about the upper chest. And yes, don't get me wrong, having a beautiful upper chest is great because that's where most people lack severely is the upper chest. But the biggest thing is going in and making and doing stuff that feels good for you because again, just because, everyone says, "Oh, dumbbell incline's the move," or dumbbell or incline Smith is the move, but you have an incline machine there that feels amazing and you feel it incredibly. It's tearing your upper pecs apart. But oh no, your boy said that, incline bench or incline dumbbell is the move and you can only do that, but you can't really feel it and you feel it all in your shoulders and your joints are achy. The thing is, you want to do stuff that's going to make you feel good and it's going to give you the most potentiation for growth. So, again, just like any muscle group, you want to be able to go in with what makes you feel good. Yes, you're going to have to put your time in when it comes to the compound movements, but at the same time, you don't want to go and waste your energy on things that you know that you can't put full effort in towards that said muscle group or that targeted area of said muscle group.
100%. All right, let's wrap the bow on this one. So I'm going to say my piece. Colin's going to say his piece. He's going to sign us out. We're done for the day. So shoulders, arms. I'm not counting forearms. If you train forearms, it's not that you're weird, but like get stronger at rowing. Does the same thing. You could also do hammer curls if you really want to train your forearms. So shoulders, arms, spam them. If it's a compound movement like shoulder press, heavier weight. If it's side lateral, put a lot of reps in. If it's a rear delt, put a lot of reps in. The idea behind it is that those muscle groups can take a beating, so beat them up. Arms. I have a lot better biceps than I do triceps. I have always done biceps in the manner of do a very heavy set, something to really, force adaptation and then pump the ever loving crap out of them. Triceps, I believe that you do a heavy movement, dip, close grip press, something of the sort, and then higher reps on the isolations. Overhead tricep extension, muddy piece because it's going to be lengthened tricep. Shortened tricep would be something like a dumbbell kickback, which sucks, but cable kickbacks are better, but not the glute one, the tricep one. Oh, we skip glutes, whatever, not a big deal. Glutes, get a full range of motion, do heavy reps, cool, done. Triceps, when it comes to like a shortened range, it would be something like a tricep pushdown, blow them up, just get a lot of blood in there. Again, forearms are going to be like hammer curls and ripping heavy things off the floor without straps on. Colin,
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say I'm any different. Especially when it comes to shoulders and arms, it's you listen, it's I kind of categorize that as like calves. Those motherfuckers are not big muscle groups. You do not have a long time for those to recover. Like, think about how long it takes you after a hard leg day, and most of your guys' legs aren't that big. And your
must be
arms
nice.
really your arms don't really fucking match up to your legs. And I'm sorry if you're fully recovered, fully rested, even if you trained it yesterday and they feel good, there's no tightness, no soreness, no nothing, hit it again if you really want to. And that's my full honest belief about it. Again, over time, they're going to get progressively more tired. There's the systemic fatigue is going to build up. You're obviously going to need to take rest days, but at the same time, if you can train it and you just because you trained it yesterday doesn't mean you can't train it today. Especially when it comes to side delts, rear delts, such tiny muscle groups that until they start getting real fucking large, you're not gonna have to really take too much rest for when it comes to training in the gym.
And the key is longevity. Like you can do triceps and biceps as many days as you want, but sooner or later your elbows are going to hurt. Once they start to hurt,
Yeah.
cut that, cut that
Yeah.
volume way down. Colin, time is
Exactly.
up.
So, as always, my beautiful people, this has been yet again another podcast of the. Oh my God, this has been another Next Up podcast with your boy cousin Creamy and
The Moses the muscle. We in this. We out. Peace.